Hello mga Ka-ECOP, I am Jose Roland Moya. The Employers Confederation of the Philippines, or ECOP, is here to ensure that your voice as employers is heard, articulated, and acted upon. ECOP addresses industrial relations issues, promotes social dialogue, and fosters proactive collaboration among employers and stakeholders. We are here to help employers become responsible, sustainable, and inclusive. ECOP has dual functions. First is its advocacy and lobbying role on labor and social policy issues on behalf of employers before the executive and legislative branches of the government. Second is delivery of direct services including training, capacity building, consultancy, provision of information, among others. By the way, wag po kayong aalis. Manood po tayo sa buong programa. Sagutin ang aming ECOPlus question for the day. I-post ang tamang sagot sa Facebook account ng ECOP at manalo ng premyo. May I introduce to you my co-host in our episode of our digital TV program, Miss Georgina Pascual, Development Cooperation Project Coordinator of the International Labor Organization Office in Manila.
Thank you, Sir Roland. Mga Ka-ECOP, welcome to ECOPlus Amplifying Your Voice every other Monday at 5:30 p.m. Our episode today is about green jobs and green skills. A green job is any decent job that contributes to preserving or restoring the quality of the environment, whether it is in agriculture, in industry, or in services and administration. These jobs are green when they help reduce the negative environmental impact and ultimately leading to environmentally, economically, and socially sustainable enterprises and economies. More precisely, these green jobs are decent jobs that reduce consumption and energy and raw materials, limit the greenhouse gas emissions, minimize waste and pollution, and protect and restore the ecosystems. Alamin ang iba't ibang impormasyon mula po sa ating mga panauhin ngayong gabi.
Ang unang makakasama natin ay si Assistant Secretary Alex V. Avila. Si Mr. Alex V. Avila is a Career Executive Service Officer 4 and an Assistant Secretary of the Labor Relations, Social Protection and Policy Support Cluster of the Department of Labor and Employment. Hello, ASEC Alex. Magandang gabi sa'yo. Welcome to ECOPlus Amplifying Your Voice. Why don't you greet the viewers of ECOPlus Amplifying Your Voice?
Gandang gabi sa iyo, DJ Roland and Jet. At karangalan ko ang makasama kayo sa digital channel ng ECOPlus Amplifying Your Voice. At nagagalak ako na makapagbahagi ng mga impormasyon tungkol sa topic na pag-uusapan natin ngayon. So good morning sa mga viewers at sa mga taga-suporta ng ECOPlus.
Okay, let's get it started, ASEC Alex. So, for our first question, can you give us an overview and background of the Philippine Green Jobs Act? Ano po ba ang nasasakop ng Republic Act 10771 at ano po yung kahalagahan ng batas na ito?
Ang Philippine Green Jobs Act ay ipinasa noong taong 2016. Ito ay tinuturing na kauna-unahan sa kreyo ng ASEAN at baka nga sa buong mundo pa. Ito ay nagbibigay ng mandato sa 21 government agencies at naglalayon ang batas na to na ma-decarbonize ang ating ekonomiya, protects our ecosystems and biodiversity, promotes reduction of energy, materials and water consumption, and minimizes generation of all forms of waste and pollution. Toward this end, the law mandates the formulation of the National Green Jobs Human Resource Development Plan to govern the development, enhancement, and utilization of the labor force, both in the private and public sectors. And of course, as you know, the DOLE has already formulated the plan.
ASEC Alex, based po dun sa batas, paano po dinidefine yung green jobs? Paano din po siya kinaklasify?
Okay. Yung batas ay nagbigay ng dalawang dimension sa definition kung ano ang masasabi or matatawag na green jobs. And if I may quote, The law defines green jobs as referring to employment that contributes to preserving or restoring the quality of the environment, be it in the agriculture, industry, or services sector. That is the technical dimension. And added to that dimension is the decent work dimension. And therefore, green jobs should be considered as decent jobs that are productive, respects the rights of workers, deliver a fair income, provide security in the workplace, and social protection for families, and promote social dialogue. So that is how the law defines green jobs. So it has the technical dimension, which is related to the protection, preservation of the environment, and the second dimension is that this job should be decent.
Asek Alex, it seems like komplikado ng konti, but I suppose it's on its way, no? So, ano po ba yung mga programa at inisyatiba na ginagawa na ngayon upang ipatupad yung batas? At the same time, if you can also tell us, kasi sa kanina nabanggit mo, may 21 po na government agencies.
Napakarami pala.
Parang ang dami, di ba? So, you can give us an idea kung sino-sino ang mga government agencies na ito. May private sector organizations ba? Mayroon bang local and international agencies na involved? And the implementation of all these programs and initiatives.
Okay. Yeah, katulad na nasabi ko, may 21 government agencies na mayroong specific mandates under the law. Nandyan ang, of course, DOLE, nandyan ang TESDA, CHED, at saka DepEd, dahil sila may mandato para sa pagprepara ng ating mga curriculum ng educational system sa pagtugon sa pangangailangan ng isang green economy. Andun din ang DTI, DOST, DPWH, DOT, NEDA, of course, yung Department of Finance together with the Bureau of Customs and the Bureau of Internal Revenue ay nandun din kasi under the law, may incentives kasi na ibibigay sa mga kwalipikadong establishmento. So if you look at these 21 government agencies, kinocover nito practically yung lahat aspeto na may kinalaman sa green jobs, be it in the construction or energy, the supply and demand of manpower, HR development and utilization, even in development planning, because the law mandates NEDA to make sure that, the green jobs mainstream into the national, regional, and local development plans. Pagdating doon sa usapin ng implementasyon, sa ngayon kasi ginagawa pa yung standards for the assessment and certification of green jobs. So meaning, habang wala ito, hindi talaga natin may implement ng buo yung batas. Dahil ang masasabi ko na puso kasi ng batas ay yung incentives. Kasi that will actually encourage establishments, the private sector, make sure that their activities and their projects lead to the creation and sustenance of green jobs. So ngayon, may ongoing project na sinusuportahan ng World Bank para i-finalize yung assessment and certification systems and guidelines. Ito ay follow-up activity dun sa isang study na ginawa ng Climate Change Commission na sinuportahan technically and financially ng International Labour Organization through its Manila office. At ito yung naglatag kung ano yung magiging batayan ng pag-develop ng tinatawag yung sinasabi ng batas na dapat mayroong standards for the assessment and certification of green jobs, green services, green processes. Ongoing ito. At ang Department of Labor and Employment ay kasama sa mga ahensya na tumutulong para maisagawa itong pag-aaral na ito.
Asek Alex, nabanggit na nga kanina na lubang napakaraming agencies ng gobyerno ang involved sa implementation ng Green Jobs Act. Paano po hina-harmonize at sinisynchronize yung mga iba't ibang mandato ng or roles ng mga government agencies dito sa batas na ito?
Oo. Ito yung pinakamalaking challenge, Kasi kung titingnan natin yung batas hindi kasi nagbigay ng mandato sa isang agency lang para sa implementasyon ng batas. Kanya-kanya kaming mandato, Tulad nung nasabi ko, ang DOLE, ang mandate niya ay may dalawa siyang primary mandate actually. Yung pangunahan ang pagbalangkas ng implementing rules and regulations na na-issue na naman 2017. At saka yung pagbalangkas ng Human Resource Development Plan for Green Jobs. So nagawa na rin yan at si Secretary Bello ay nag-issue na ng utusan para adoption ng National Green Jobs HRD Plan. Ito namang mga IRR na to at saka itong HRD Plan ay buka rin ito ng konsultasyon, social dialogue at involved dyan yung the other 20 government agencies which have mandate under the Green Jobs Law. So nakita namin yon yung challenge na yon, and we took it upon ourselves, upon the DOLE, to somehow organize a high-level group where each government agency is at least represented by an undersecretary or a senior official in the case or their counterparts in the case of BIR or Customs, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. So we tried to organize this high-level group, at least coordinate the implementation of the law. And we had our first meeting sometime in 2018 with the support of the ILO, except for at least, I think, around 4 government agencies. May mga representatives na yung 17 government agencies sa high-level group na to. Because kailangang may manguna kung paano yung coordination, paano yung monitoring ng mga ginagawa at ma-monitor na rin dapat tupad ba ng mga government agencies yung kanilang mandato under the law. Kaya lang, nagka-COVID, hindi na uli namin na-meet yung grupo. I must assume baka yung ibang designated representatives ay wala na rin sa kanilang mga ahensya o wala na rin sa gobyerno. Pero within the DOLE, we have our own interagency committee that is tasked to ensure that we are able to fulfill our mandate under the Green Jobs Law.
Okay, ASEC Alex, thank you po sa pagpapaliwanag noon. Ngayon, maiba ko ng konti kasi ito yung mga nangyayari sa government side, no? Kung sakaling maayos na itong assessment and certification na binabanggit, na fina-finalize ngayon, na kung saan malalaman ng lahat kung ano yung dapat gawin from the government side para maibigay ang incentives. Mayroon pa bang ibang kailangang gawin ang private sector para mapag-avail sila nitong incentives na nasa ilalim ng Green Jobs Act?
Parang yan yung what's in it for us,
Exactly,
diba?
exactly.
The law provides two forms of incentives. That is yung 50% tax deduction of the total expenses for skills, training, and research development expenses of the applicant company. The law says that this incentive shall be in addition to fiscal and non-fiscal incentives already granted or provided under existing laws, orders, issuances, and regulations. The second incentive is the exemption of qualified companies from importation duties. So this refers to the acquisition of equipment which shall be actually directly and exclusively used in generating and sustaining green jobs. So yun yung binibigay na incentives ng batas. Although isa ito sa pag-uusapan sa sinasabi ko na ginagawang mag-aaral kanina na pinangungunahan ng Deloitte at with the support of World Bank and of course led by Climate Change Commission Secretariat. During the consultation, nung ginagawa namin yung HRD plan, there was a participant whom I personally knew when I was still the regional director of Calabarzon. Many years back. He's a HR director of a big electronics company. Several years, and we exchanged ideas on the Green Jobs Law. Well, what surprised me out of that conversation was his statement. Of course, incentives to us are important. But the other important thing for them is to be certified as a company that produces and sustains green jobs. Kasi ang experience niya, tinitingnan din kasi ito ng aming mga kliyente overseas. So, kaya nga doon sa mga pag-uusap namin about the requirements, about the processes that might be involved. If an applicant company tries to get the certification from the Climate Change Commission that they are qualified under the law to avail of the incentives, tinitingnan namin yung may cost-benefit analysis kami tinitingnan, yung perspective na dapat abala at gagastusin sa pag-apply ng incentives ay somehow mas maliit doon sa fiscal incentives na makukuha. Kasi otherwise, baka hindi natin talaga ma-encourage yung companies. Kahit sabihin pa natin na they have already created green jobs, at least in the technical sense, or mag-create sila or may activities sila that will lead in the generation of green jobs. So, tinitingnan namin yun, cost-benefit analysis on the part of the applicant. So, as much as possible, reducing the requirements, reducing the processes, the number of processes that must be complied. Kasi ang daming requirements na on the surface ay parang dapat i-comply, di ba? Labor laws, in the case of the decent work dimension, environmental laws, siguro pati on the part of the DTI sa mga product standards, etc. Yun yung talagang main motivation for companies to generate may incentives na binibigay.
Ibig bang sabihin ito, Alex, ay hindi pa in place yung certification, yung incentives, at saka exemption. So, paano ngayon nagkakaroon ito mga green jobs kung wala pa itong mga sistema, mga processes na ito? Ito ba ay merkado na mismo yung nagdidikta para ma-create itong mga jobs while, this certification, incentive, and exemption systems have yet to be, defined and worked out?
Okay. Of course, we know green jobs are already around us. May mga green workers na, may mga green jobs na, at least in the technical sense. And possibly, kung natitingnan lang ng masinsinan, baka kahit yung sa decent work dimension, na-comply na nila. So, technically and substantially, magka-qualify under the definition of green jobs yung mga jobs na yun. The law provides that before the incentives could be granted to qualified applicants, the companies must be able to show that indeed they have created or sustained green jobs. And that is the purpose of the assessment and certification standards. Kasi once na mag-avail kasi yung company, they will need to prove to both customs and BIR na they are qualified. And being qualified means having complied with the requirements pursuant to the standards. So yun yung ginagawa. Ang maganda dyan, even the DOLE, ang Bureau of Local Employment namin, mayroon ng listahan ng mga green jobs. Pero yun nga, ang sinasabi namin, ito yung mga green jobs na siguro initially, ito technically green. Halimbawa, yung mga engineers na directly involved in the production of the solar panel, by the very nature of their product, di ba? Green product siya, and therefore, yung gumagawa nun, green job. And I must assume, pati yung processes doon, yung production processes, manufacturing processes, ay baka considered din green. Posibleng yung process nila, kumukonsumo na ng less water, less energy, hindi sila nagtatapon ng mga waste sa environment, kontrolado nila yung pollution na nilalabas ng kanilang pabrika. Kasi under the ILO study way back in 2018, may tatlong aspeto doon na tinignan sa pagtalakay ng green jobs. Una, yung industry approach na tinatawag. Ito yung, halimbawa, kung ang industry mo ay nabibilang sa renewable energy, by your industry itself, considered ka na parang green company ka. Meron din tinitingnan yung green yung sa process. Ito, medyo mas complicated ito dahil titingnan mo dito kung yung production processes at under the study ng ILO at saka yung ginagawa ngayon, tinitingnan dito yung certain threshold, halimbawa, water consumption, etc. So, medyo highly technical itong aspeto na to. Tapos, meron din product or service approach. Yung by the very nature of the product or the service ay considered green. So, the idea of the assessment standards are to provide the protocol and the clear guidelines on how to determine which are green and which are not green. That is the technical side. On the part of the DOLE, our task now is to make sure that the applicant company, these companies that produce green goods or deliver green services are compliant with labor standards. So, ganun yung ganun. Kaya medyo complicated siya because of the two dimensions. So, kung ikaw halimbawa ay isang solar energy company, klaro na you belong to the green sector, green industry, klaro na nagpuproduce ka ng green products, klaro din siguro na gumagamit ka ng mga processes na hindi masyadong gumagamit ng kuryente at tubig, nakakatulong sa environment, yung hindi ka nagtatapon ng mga hazardous waste and materials into the environment, you don't contribute to pollution. So, klaro yon. Pero kung halimbawa yung company na yon ay hindi nagpapasahod ng tama, don't comply comply with the minimum wage law, kung may mga violation ng labor rights, hindi siya makukonsider green company or hindi siya magka-qualify doon sa incentives kasi hindi namin sila isi-certify na compliant sila sa decent work dimension. So I think that is how it is supposed to work. Once the standards for assessment and certification and the Green Jobs Accounting Protocol are finalized and officially adopted.
Okay, ASEC Alex, because for example, I'm from the business side o nandun tayo sa mga sectors. So there's somewhere to start. Pwede po ba tayo para sa mga nanonood sa atin to be able to give us yung parang mga concrete na examples ng green jobs dito sa Pilipinas and perhaps start with which sectors would most likely be producing these? Pwede po bang magbigay ng examples there para maging medyo mas malinaw po sa kanila?
So anong klaseng trabaho at anong mga industriya o sectors
mo sila pwedeng makita? Like first instance.
Okay. Yung green jobs, nung una kahit within the DOLE, may mga pagtingin na geographic-centric siya. May mga regions lang na makakapag-produce niyan. May pagtingin din na sector-specific siya, which is not actually true. Yung green jobs can be present anywhere, anytime. Kahit sa sektor ng pagbabasura, posibleng may green jobs na makreate dyan. Pero under the ILO study and the ones being conducted now by Deloitte, may mga priority sectors na tinitingnan. Nandun, siyempre, renewable energy, andyan ang manufacturing, andyan ang construction. Kasi we have green buildings, we have green construction practices, we have green infrastructures. So may mga sector na pinaprioritize. Actually, yung batas is very encompassing in defining the coverage of the law insofar as the incentives are concerned. Ang sabi ng batas, at least the incentives shall cover all business enterprises, which include self-employed or on-account workers, micro, small, and medium enterprises, community-based business enterprises, and cooperatives. Yan yung sinasabi ng batas na coverage niya. It is for this reason that during our discussion with a group that is conducting the present study, the recommendations, the standards, the accounting protocol should take into consideration that. Kasi hindi naman lahat ng mag-a-avail dito or magka-qualify ay nandun sa malalaking kumpanya. Kaya sabi namin, siyempre yung standards ng malalaki na manufacturing company, baka hindi yung totally mag-a-apply sa mga on-account workers or sa mga cooperatives. So, special consideration is being taken in this study. Make sure all the beneficiaries that the law intends to cover are actually covered. Hindi lang legally covered, but actually covered. And should they wish to apply for the incentives, there is appropriate protocol that will guide them that could be able to comply to be able to avail of the incentives. So yun yung mga priority sector. I think there are around 10 sectors na tinitingnan na priority. At yun, ilan na lang yung nabanggit ko.
Yeah, ASEC Alex, halimbawa ako ay isang worker o naghahanap ng trabaho at very passionate ako about environment, about sustainable development, about climate change. At gusto kong pumasok sa isang trabaho na maituturing na green job. Ano po kayang skill set ang hahanapin sa akin itong company na merong nag-o-offer the green jobs? At meron bang pagsasanay na ino-offer dito sa mga...
Meron kayang training programs, yung gano'n?
Oo, kasi nabanggit ni ASEC Alex kanina, Jet, yung na-involved ang TESDA at saka ang CHED.
Exactly.
Okay. Yung HRD plan and even the law requires that proper intervention should be made to make sure that our educational system also supports the green economy. In particular, yung tatlong educational agencies natin, the TESDA, the CHED, and the DepEd. With respect to the skills, TESDA actually has already adopted or implemented yung mga training regulations, which they consider to be green. They have a partnership with ILO many years back. I think it is still ongoing. That try to kanilang mga training regulations respond to the needs of the green economy. I cannot recall the exact number of training regulations that already respond to the requirements of the green economy. But they are already doing that. That is part of the training regulations. As to the skills, I think may mga courses din kasi baka may mga 101 or 201 201 subjects na on which are considered to be green. I would assume na siguro yung mga engineering graduates natin somehow, baka may green orientation and knowledge na rin sila, and siguro yung mga basic skills. But I think the final requirements really of green skills should depend on the company and how the company defines yung green skills. Each company might have its own standards on how to treat a certain aspect of their operation to be as green, and what kind of skills they would need from their workers to support that particular aspect of their operations. What the Green Jobs Act of 2016 intends to achieve is to recognize that these green initiatives, green jobs are existing in the company, and yun nga, should they wish to avail of the incentives, that the incentives are given to them in the most convenient possible way.
Asek Alex, we have run out of time. Maybe Jet here may want to ask the last question.
Yes, actually, ito medyo controversial yung gusto kong itanong ng konti kay Asek Alex. Kasi it seems so nice, no, that the green jobs we are talking about responds to the decent work aspects, as well as, of course, contribute to the environment. Pero sa paningin naman ng worker or nung empleyado na nandoon, mayroong pagkakataon din minsan na yung mga green jobs na yan medyo hazardous. Diba? Like say for example, if I am working in a waste management facility, or have you seen yung mga bagong mga windmills? Did you ever think kung paano inaayos ng mga mechanics and engineers nila yan?
Tataas doon.
Matataas
Kailangan
kasi yan
yun.
Right, exactly. So, I don't know, maybe this is where I think Dole steps in, and has there been any discussion around these things?
Yeah, definitely. And that is the reason why the law probably inserted that decent work dimension. Because as I explained earlier, a job could be technically green, but not actually green under the law. Because if that particular job is, or at least if the company that employs these workers which perform green-related activities, at nakita naman natin na hindi siya compliant sa labor standards, sa mga batas paggawa, sa health and safety standards, hindi siya ma-certify, hindi siya mako-consider na green jobs. Of course, sa iba, it won't matter kung hindi naman sila mag-a-apply ng incentives. Kasi yun nga, katulad na sinabi ko, it depends upon the company. They might have their own parameters, they might have their own metrics on this thing, on the greenness of their operation, on the greenness of their employment. Kasi ang daming shades kasi ng green di ba? That is the challenge There are many shades of green, And the law considers the two main shades. That technically, that is green, and secondly, that these jobs must be decent. At in-explain ko na kanina, paano ma-consider na decent ang isang trabaho. Ito yung trabaho na nagbibigay ng karampatang sahod, meaning at least compliant naman sa minimum wage. Kasi nung pinag-uusapan namin yung decent work dimension, in consultation with the sectors, ECOP was there, the trade union sector was there, tinitingnan namin, paano natin i-develop yung decent work criteria? Dapat bang compliant lang ang company base dun sa assessment checklist, inspection checklist ng department? Kasi yun naman tinitingnan dun, yung mga, kumbaga, ito yung floor. Ito yung hindi dapat bababa sa minimum wage, dapat may mga safety officer, etc. Considering na bago ito, tapos medyo hindi rin naman ganong kadali mag-comply ang potential applicants sa lahat ng labor laws and regulation. But of course, they must comply kung yun yung minimum standards. At least may social consensus na progressive realization ang principle na i-adapt natin. Yun yung maging approach. Sige, sa initial implementation, tingnan na lang muna natin kung na-inspection ng DOLE at lumabas na compliant siya pursuant to the existing inspection checklist, mako-consider natin na compliant ng company yung decent work dimension. I think ganun din yung approach na pinag-uusapan at sinasuggest doon sa determination sa technical threshold pagdating doon sa process approach. Halimbawa, ilan dapat ang volume ng waste, ilan dapat yung consumption ng water or energy, depende kasi yun sa sector, sa industry. So, we have agreed on that progressive realization approach. Kasi dapat nagle-level up malaki. Hindi naman maganda siguro tingnan din dahil nagbibigay ng incentives ang gobyerno. Dapat mag-level up din naman yung compliance ng company. On our part, especially with respect to their compliance with labor standards. In the future, gusto namin makita na hindi lang minimum compliance, hindi lang compliance with minimum standards. Gusto namin makita na yung nabibigay na incentives ay nagbibigay naman ng mga benepisyo at nagko-comply sa labor standards over and above what the law provides.
Thank you very much, ASEC Alex, sa pagkakataong binigay mo sa amin upang ikaw ay makapanayam para mapag-usapan itong mahalagang episode ng ECOPlus Amplifying Your Voice on Green Jobs. Ang dami ko kasing gustong mga issue na maipaliwanag at and I think you have shared a lot of insights to make us better understand the Green Jobs Act, especially the role of the Department of Labor and Employment. Thank you, ASEC Alex.
Marami pong salamat, ASEC Alex. Until the next time.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, and we look forward to future engagement on important topics that are shared mutually by not only by employers and the worker sector, but the general public as well.
Yeah, stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you po.
Thank you very much for the very fruitful discussion, Assistant Secretary Alex Avila of the Department of Labor and Employment. Our next guest is Ms. Cristina Martinez, a Senior Specialist for Environment and Decent Work of the International Labor Organization Regional Office, which is based in Bangkok, Thailand. Good evening, Ms. Martinez. Welcome to ECOPlus, Amplifying Your Voice.
So, Cristina, as our first question, and I think this is often asked from you, what role is the ILO playing in promoting green business, green jobs, and green skills?
Thank you, Jet. The ILO main agenda is to promote decent work and advance social justice. And what we have been seeing as we look into the trends and key drivers of what is shaping the world of work, now and into the future, is that environmental sustainability and climate change poses key challenges to economies, industries, and society as a whole. The ILO is a specialized UN agency on social and labor issues and is recognized as a lead authority on the world of work. We understand that to fully support our constituents, governments, workers, and employers, we should also be able to engage with them in addressing these emerging challenges. So green jobs, green skills, green business, and sustainable enterprises approaches provide the context that show how the decent work agenda can turn these challenges into opportunities, creating positive environmental and climate actions along with employment outcomes. Green jobs, as you know, as defined in the ILO, are not only jobs that can be found in the environmental field to produce goods and services that benefit the environment and the climate, or conserve natural resources and minimize or avoid generating all forms of waste and pollution. Most importantly, these have to be decent jobs. And this is an important differentiation because you might hear about green jobs without the complementarity and very important issue of addressing the decent work agenda of the international labor standards. And as we understand the deeper and integrate links between jobs, climate, and environmental sustainability, we can all thrive and benefit from this joint addressing the environment at the same time that we address the labor standards. So when you think about the ILO's role on green jobs and green skills, you actually think on jobs that provide dignity to the people and communities, and that provide a better fit with the future of work, also for enterprises and for those working with them. Thank you.
Yeah, Tell us about the concept of just transition and how the International Labor Organization supports the just transition.
Thank you, Roland. Well, as the economy undergoes greening transformations, this means changes in industry processes, which could result to some sectors' growth and expansion into new ones, as some sectors contract as well, close, or in some cases get replaced. And in all of this, employment and jobs will be impacted. The ILO provides policy inputs and guidance to maximize positive economic outcomes and employment opportunities from the transition. As much as possible, help should be there for displaced workers to be able to move and find work in emerging industry sectors, which are expanding. Support measures to make this whole process fair in the interest of the labor force and the vulnerable, for example, youth, women, and also communities where might be a focused activity that can be maybe phasing out. So they all can reap the benefits, ensuring that the transition is just and a real force for good. Throughout its history, the ILO has promoted social justice in all major economic transitions. This mandate has shaped the role of the organization in helping ensure that economic growth policies generate opportunities for decent work and social protection that benefits all. In the current context of climate change, social justice also underpins the imperative of a just transition of the workforce and the creation of decent work and quality jobs. The ILO and the UN Global Jobs Accelerator aims to create at least 4 million jobs, including in care and green sectors, and to extend social protection to 4 billion people. So as part of the UN Global Accelerator on Jobs and Social Protection for Just Transitions, the UN also works through the Climate Action for Jobs initiative that focuses specifically in promoting green jobs. So if you want to think what a just transition is, you can think in terms of a plan, a design for going from one situation that requires change to a situation where we have better outcomes and better jobs for the communities, also for the employers that are in a particular industry sector. And we must understand that the just transition will not happen automatically. It will happen by design.
So let's get into something more local and more something that we can identify with. So can you please share what benefits can we get from the implementation of the Philippine Green Jobs Act? And from the perspective of the ILO, are there new opportunities that makes this Green Jobs Act more relevant now?
Well, the Philippines Green Jobs Act is a unique legislation. It's the legislation that leads the world in how green jobs promotion could be integrated into the different portfolios in a national setting. So in that way, it addresses many things, including policy coherence for environmental sustainability. This legislation does not only provide for a legal framework to link sustainability with employment outcomes in the Philippines, but it also reinforces the importance of human-centered measures like training and human resource development as a form of capital investment. This suggests that the measures are equally important, such as adding new technologies or advanced equipment for production or business operations to improve environmental sustainability and resource efficiency of industries. This law also enables expanded partnerships between government and the private sector by providing schemes to recognize responsible business practices and commitments for the environment, climate action, and social aspects of sustainable development. At this time, the implementation of this law can provide direct benefits to both employers and workers. Its implementation is geared to encourage investment in the skills upgrading of the workforce, and in this way also opens more opportunities for workers to upgrade their skills through these programs offered by employers or those provided under government programs. This kind of support is very relevant since it complements all the other assistance offered at this moment, that we are all moving, recognizing that we are all moving towards the recovery from the pandemic. So I would say to conclude, the unique characteristics of the legislation and the continuous investment on the implementation is where private sector, the employers can push further for assuring that the environmental sustainability is actually implemented with expanded investments.
Cristina, what is the importance of promoting green jobs and implementing the law, especially in the context of the pandemic?
Thank you for this very important question. The pandemic certainly has had a terrible impact on jobs, catastrophic impact on jobs in Asian countries. But we are emerging now from the economic slowdown of the pandemic, and we all come to realize that this is an opportunity to reassess and recalibrate the way our economy and industries function, so we can make sure that they remain resilient to any other crisis that might come in our way. It was unfortunate that the pandemic has hit hard on employment, and its repercussions were felt worldwide, and more so by the vulnerable members of our society. In the context of recovery, the aspiration is that this process also builds towards something better for the benefit of all. Thus, jobs and employment is a crucial part of this recovery process. The first order, of course, is to ensure that we are building back towards better jobs, aligned to decent work. And as we all know, climate change and its impacts are ongoing global crises that we need to address. Promoting green jobs, defined as decent jobs that contribute to environmental sustainability and climate action, can be taken as part of the current recovery process, and in turn maximize the opportunity to also work on these climate and sustainability outcomes. Now, for the Philippines, where the impacts of climate change can be felt with the annual change of the seasons, this can be a very important consideration in planning and implementing the post-pandemic recovery process. With this, it then becomes a measure to promote human-centered recovery, which also increases our resilience to address the risk caused by climate change and environmental degradation. To conclude, if we look at how the green recovery measures included in recovery packages across the globe, the inclusion of concrete measures for implementation still needs to be improved, and I think we can count with the Philippines Employers Group to private sector to assist with further inclusion of green recovery practices. Thank you.
And to follow up, the ILO has been helping with the implementation of the Green Jobs Act in the Philippines. But specifically, what help can the ILO provide the employers and the business community in this kind of transition?
Thank you, Jed. The ILO remains ready to support its social partners, not only this time, but even before and beyond. As a specialized UN agency recognized as the world's expert and leading authority on the world of work, our programs, such as the Climate Action for Jobs Initiative and the Global Call to Action for a Human-Centered Recovery from COVID-19, that is inclusive, sustainable, and resilient, maintain our commitment to support the Philippines in this course through its Decent Work country program. We may recall that in the last 2 years, the ILO has been engaging in the response and recovery process under the lead of the government counterparts in defining recovery pathways and implementing suitable policies and programs to assist micro and small enterprises for their workplaces to safely conduct their operations according to the OSH and other global standards, plan for business continuity, and provide platforms for communication and dialogue where the important partnerships between employers and business owners and their workers, employees, can be further strengthened around the mutual interest of building back better and ensuring an inclusive, sustainable, and resilient recovery. In terms of programs, the ILO continues to provide technical advice and capacity building programs for employers and business owners to address the impacts of COVID-19 on their operations and work on their recovery strategies. Further, the ILO continues to support the information platform for sharing of updated knowledge and resources, best practices across the globe, as well as providing in-depth analysis and monitoring of impact and trends of COVID-19 on the world of work. We hope to continue working with the national partners, the employers, within the framework of the National Employment Recovery Strategy, the Decent Work Country Program of the Philippines, and the ILO Global Call to Action for COVID-19 recovery. And we are very open to collaborate further with you through our various projects and programs. And we thank you very much for your collaboration and partnership.
May we have your final words, Ms. Martinez?
Thank you. I'm very, very pleased to be here with you today. As I already have been introduced, but I'm the senior specialist at the ILO Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, speaking with you today from Bangkok. And I cover the whole region, Asian countries and also Pacific Island countries, in the theme of environment, climate change, green jobs promotion, and just transition in all the different industry sectors and policy advice. We work with the tripartite constituents of the ILO, the employers, workers, and governments, and the private sector is the one of the key partners for us. Because, of course, the green jobs promotion will happen particularly in enterprises. So very pleased to be here with you today, and thank you for inviting the ILO to discuss with you today.
Indeed, thank you very much again, Ms. Martinez, for your participation in tonight's episode of ECOPlus, Amplifying Your Voice.
Thank you, Roland. It has been a very, very pleasant time sharing with you our work and stressing perhaps that we are here to advance our partnership, to listen to you, to listen to the employers and the private sector in the Philippines, to also augment your voice within ASEAN countries, the ASEAN member states look at the Philippines as a model, as you have the Green Jobs Act, as we have discussed. And this important leadership role in many ways for the ASEAN member countries is something that we are very proud to be part of with your guidance, and we will continue to support the employers and the private sector and the partners of the ILO. Thank you.
Before we proceed to our last guest for tonight, mga Ka-ECOP, we will be right back after this segment.
Congratulations to our ECOP President and National Officers, Tito Serge Ortiz Luis Jr., who had been instrumental for me joining ECOP. Employers' Confederation of the Philippines' 46 years of existence and being one of the pillars of the business industry, had proved that through our advocacies, aims, and objectives, we can help and build a better quality of life for the Filipino people. Few months ago, Chanti Gem Fine Jewelry Collection became a part of ECOP, and I can say that in the short period of time, we have recognized the efforts of the organization and bring the latest news and updates concerning businesses, property industry, current events, and others. It also addresses the concerns of not only the business, but also health, environment, and other social concerns. Shanti Gem Fine Jewelry Collection is looking forward for a great experience by joining ECOP organization. I believe that partnership with ECOP also provides the members with the benefits of mentorship, networking, and we can share our experiences about the challenges that can help us grow as entrepreneurs. Above all of this, I am confident and strongly recommend other businesses to join ECOP. The organization shown immense growth and has achieved a lot of significant milestones in the industry. This is Marisa Dalmar from Chanti Gem Fine Jewelry Collection. Mabuhay at maraming salamat po.
The Philippine Hotel Owners Association has always been at the forefront of protecting and promoting the interests of owners, investors, and developers of hotels all over the country. We have achieved this through the unwavering support and cooperation from partners from the private sector, including the Employers Confederation of the Philippines. We share the same goals with the ECOP in creating an environment that is conducive to generating investments and creating employment as we contribute to national development. Through this partnership, we hope to encourage and safeguard the investments of owners in hotels, resorts, casino hotels, and other accommodation establishments all over the country. We look forward to a stronger and more sustained partnership with the ECOP. Thank you.
And we're back. Welcome again to ECOPlus, Amplifying Your Voice. I am Jose Roland Moya, and allow me to introduce our last guest for tonight, Mr. Bonar Laureto, Climate and Sustainability Director of Deloitte, Philippines. Hello, Mr. Laureto. Welcome to ECOPlus, Amplifying Your Voice. Why don't you greet the viewers of tonight's episode?
Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. It's a great pleasure to be of help in terms of sharing perspectives on the work that we do, particularly on sustainability.
Jet, I'll ask the first question.
Sure, go ahead.
The question is, Deloitte is a global organization. It's a global company. Can you tell us your operations in the Philippines?
Yes, Deloitte operates as a network of independent firms. So the Philippines, Navarro, Ampere and Company is the member firm of the Deloitte, Southeast Asia Deloitte, which is also a member of the Asia Pacific Deloitte and the global Deloitte brand. So in the Philippines, there's a number of what we call storefront on risk advisory, on tax advisory, consulting, as well as few others terms of servicing our clients here in the Philippines.
So, Mr. Laureto, thanks for joining us. We have a couple of things to ask from you, but let's start with this one. Although you're still very new, I knew that you are anyway in the sustainability field for quite a while. So, I'm sure you can handle this one because I would like to refer to a report by Deloitte in 2019, and it's entitled The Future of the Chief Sustainability Officer. Can you tell us more about what it is and how significant is the content of this report, even in a country like the Philippines?
Thank you, Jed, for that question. That publication provides and highlights the importance of the Chief Sustainability Officer in any business organization, given that businesses today are facing a multitude of challenges, risks that is compromising their ability to achieve their business objectives. And because of the complexity of these risks, you have to have a person who have the capability to understand all of these complex risks. The World Economic Forum's Global Risk Landscape of 2020-2021 provides for the most important risks to the global economy, and majority of these high in terms of frequency and high in terms of impact risks are sustainability in nature. And because they're sustainability in nature, like climate change, extreme weather events, nature loss, livelihood crises, they can tend to be quite technical. And as a result, those existing executives in the business would have a challenge in terms of truly understanding and interpreting these risks and how these could impact their business model, their market, their external environment that affects their performance and their future success. So the publication provides for perspectives on why the Chief Sustainability Officer is a critical position in an organization. Without a strong and robust approach of understanding these emerging factors that affects the business model and its performance, the company will be running blind as far as how factors will shape the business environment, will shape the perspectives of their key stakeholders, and will shape the behavior of their customers in the market in general. And so it is the task of the Chief Sustainability Officer to capture this complexity and translate it into a language that can be appreciated by the business executives. It is a job of the Chief Sustainability Officer, create make sustainability as a priority of the business. Sustainable development challenges are captured in the way they anticipate risks, in the way they understand what will drive and increase and multiply the risks in the market. It is the job of the Chief Sustainability Officer to coordinate whether it's human capital, whether it's marketing, and whether it's operations. It's the job of the Chief Sustainability Officer to help them embed. So it is the job of the Chief Sustainability Officer to coordinate with the different business functions, whether it's a human capital management, whether it's the marketing, operations, or strategy, to try and translate for them how the sustainability risks such as climate change, sea level rise, ocean acidification, extreme weather events, extreme temperatures, how this will translate into increased operating cost, damages to physical assets, or even change in the behavior of employees as far as working for a company in terms of how they contribute to climate change, whether they aggravate climate change or address climate change. So these sustainability issues are creeping into every corner of the business organization. Understanding how these changes are happening externally and how the organization must change along with these changes is the main function of the Chief Sustainability Officer.
How common is the position of Sustainability Officer in the Philippines? Kasi
Roland, I think I'm not hearing you well.
Okay. My question, Bonar, is how common is the position of Sustainability Officer in the Philippines right now? Do you have any idea? And how is this different from the role of a corporate social responsibility Officer.
Okay, so the chief sustainability position has emerged in the Philippines in the last maybe 6-7 years as more and more companies in the Philippines realize that there is a huge demand from various stakeholders. So in the past 6-7 years, the position of Chief Sustainability Officer has started to emerge in the Philippine corporations. And this is driven by the increased demand for environment, social, and governance data and disclosure, the investor communities, and even those who rate them on their sustainability performance, what we call as ESG raters. So with the increase in demand of these ESG performance information, companies have realized that they have to have someone to look after these disclosure requirements. But through the years, they're realizing, and the chief sustainability officers in the Philippines are realizing that there is more mandate that they have to come up to. There is more process, there has to be more work that they have to deliver, since they have realized that now, just like the pandemic, businesses could get severely impacted by these factors. And that realization, I've worked with chief sustainability officers who have now made very ambitious actions and targets around climate change, around decarbonization, around improving resilience of the organization, because they're realizing that if they don't do this, then the business model itself and its revenue model can get compromised. So increasingly, more and more companies in the Philippines have designated a person or a department to lead this conversation on ESG, and this work has become more and more important, not just for external stakeholders, but internally. So the whole conversation of sustainability in many companies now has become a conversation at the boardroom. We have worked with companies who have created a sustainability charter, which provides for the governance structure and the functions of different people to try and really manage sustainability in the organization. So right now, I'd say perhaps 60% of the companies would have a person assigned. Perhaps they might not be referred to as a chief sustainability officer, but they would have been assigned certain functions that are being done by a chief sustainability officer. I've seen in some companies the CFO himself is the chief sustainability officer. In some companies, the CRO, chief risk officer, becomes the chief sustainability. Some companies have still remained placed their sustainability in the communications, may not be very strategic, the communications. So it's quite different from the CSR function. The CSR function primarily focuses on the philanthropic and community-related engagements, right? So it's more like, it's driven more from an altruistic point of view, looking at how the company can become better able to support communities. How can the resources of the organization be deployed to alleviating people's lives, for example, which may not be necessarily directly linked to the core business activities that the company is doing. The difference between that and the sustainability function is that the sustainability function really has to look after the well-being of the business and how it gets affected by certain sustainable development risks, and how these sustainable development risks is influencing the perspectives and expectations of their stakeholders. So that's the difference of these two functions.
Wow, Bonar, I think you have just really provided us with a very broad appreciation of what a CSO, a Chief Sustainability Officer, does. But I would like to bring back to the context of sustainability, because from that discussion, we seem to get the notion that it's really more about the compliance, the legal aspect, anticipating risk. But we do know that sustainability has other aspects, and I don't know, perhaps you can also enlighten us if this also still falls within the purview. So from the business perspective, when we say sustainability, sometimes I think, especially from the operational side, the core business side, we always seem to refer to it also as synonymous to the competitiveness of the company. So how is this relationship now? I know we started very broadly, but perhaps let's try to look at that kind of business perspective by trying to chart that function of sustainability also to being able to support the competitiveness of any company.
The interface between sustainability and competitiveness.
Exactly. Is this still covered
Thank
within
you.
that?
Yes. Thank you for raising those questions. Very important ones. And it speaks to the value of having a sustainability agenda in a given company. Ultimately, one of the objectives of the company is to be able to maximize their share of the market, be able to deliver products and services effectively, maximize their revenue, manage their cost, and be able to maximize and optimize their profitability. So if you have factors like sustainable development issues that compromise your assets, compromise your operability, increases your operating cost, then necessarily it will impact your ability to achieve those primary business objectives. And in the competitive space, the cheaper you're able to generate your products and services, the better you're able to position your products in the market. With certain quality standards that you have to maintain becomes too high, then you're essentially displaced in the market by other competitors who may have a better value proposition at a lower cost, at a lower price. So if sustainable development challenges will make you necessarily more expensive because you have not potential costs and risks to the business, then that will put you out of that competitive space. Therefore, if you want to stay ahead of the curve, if you want to be out there, you must be able to see which factors are affecting the market dynamics. And because sustainability risks is becoming more and more important in shaping these market dynamics, then you have to understand these factors, you have to understand the mechanics, you have to be very prepared, and you have to take advantage of whatever opportunities there are.
Thanks, Bonar, for the very extensive explanation about the roles and functions and even the mandates of responsibilities for our CSOs or the Chief Sustainability Officer. But let me backtrack a bit because normally it's not always the legal aspects, risks, and compliances that we think about when we talk about sustainability. And from a business perspective, we also know that sustainability is also very much related to competitiveness. So if you can explain further to us, like how can we really see that link? How is sustainability related to competitiveness?
Thank you, Jet. That's a really, really good question. Sustainability and these sustainable development issues and risks shape the market environment. It shapes the expectations of stakeholders, customers, investors, even other businesses that you work with. And the impact of unmanaged sustainable development risks can be very severe, that it can impact your operability, it can harm your assets, it can slow down your production, it can make your raw materials more expensive, and it can even, without managing these risks, it can even cause some attrition, an increase in attrition of your employees. And these very important elements are what drives the competitiveness of any company. How it can price itself well in a certain level of quality in terms of its products and services is founded on these key factors, such as having really good and well-trained and stable workforce, or access to raw materials at an affordable price. So if you have risks such as if you're a food company, for example, and you're sourcing from different areas in terms of raw materials, and these raw materials becomes more expensive because they've been hit by extreme weather events, then that necessarily could compromise your productivity and the cost of the price of your products. And that impacts very well your ability to stay and keep your market share, your share of the market. And so companies who have looked at these factors, have understood these factors, and have set redundancies and risk mitigation approaches against these factors, are necessarily going to sustain lower risks, lower costs in these risks. And they will be able to manage the price, the eventual price of their products and services. And that keeps them well within a very competitive position. But that's really just from the risk perspective. But there's also something from an opportunity perspective. With the transition of the economy towards low carbon, and that low carbon transition is driven by the global agenda to address climate change and avoid the huge risks to our way of life, from sea level rise, extreme temperatures, more frequent extreme weather events. These factors or impacts of climate change could, just like the pandemic, and even more than the pandemic, could cripple our economy. And so globally, and whether it's the public sector or the private sector, multinational companies, there's a huge drive towards addressing climate change. And with this transition comes certain transition risks. And companies who are not able to ride that wave of transition will necessarily fall by the wayside. And those who are able to ride this wave will remain relevant and successful, and even very much ahead of the competitive space. So let me cite an example, a case study. So one major transition that's going to happen in our society, that has been happening, is a transition towards low carbon energy and low carbon mobility. This low carbon mobility must be coupled by low carbon or renewable energy generation to make it work. I'm talking particularly on the transition to electric vehicles. And there's no car company today that is not producing, or at least doing R&D in producing electric vehicles. Why? Because the electric vehicles is a way to decarbonize the transport sector. And we're not talking just about cars and SUVs. We're also talking about trucks and the freight, and even boats and airplanes are transitioning towards electric. So if you're a car company and you are not conscious about the opportunities that is presented in this low carbon transition, then necessarily you will be left in the competitive race towards being best out there in terms of the newly demanded types of vehicles like electric vehicles. And so not looking at the opportunities that these changes around us, the business environment, the demand of the market, not being conscious about that is simply just bad business management. And therefore, sustainability in many companies who are already mature is no longer referred to as sustainability, but it's really just very adaptive and dynamic and risk responsive business management. And this ability of a company to be agile, to be very able to capture these risks and anticipate opportunities, will eventually make them more successful in the future, more competitive, and ultimately win the market.
Bonar, follow-up question. Large companies, especially multinationals, must be very familiar with risk assessments, public disclosures, governance, transparency. But I do not know whether MSMEs, the medium, the micro, small, and medium enterprises would have a similar understanding and appreciation of sustainability issues. So how do we emphasize the point that sustainability issues are equally important as the day-to-day operations of MSMEs?
Thank you, Roland. The situation of MSMEs is quite unique because many of them are really struggling to make both ends meet.
Right.
Their margins are very thin, their operations are not as efficient, and you don't have that economies of scale that makes you more competitive. Therefore, looking at sustainability in a medium and long-term horizon is very difficult to emphasize in a company, an SME, and an enterprise, not even sure if they're going to meet and they're going to be viable in the next 3-5 years. And so it's that constant struggle of survival that makes it very difficult to have a conversation on sustainability. However, there are entry points in the way they do things within their own world that can be used to introduce sustainability in the way they operate. Low-hanging fruits such as use of energy-efficient equipment, improving operational efficiency, improving their ability to take care of their people are very important drivers of their own competitiveness and even growth and survival. So if we can have a conversation around how they can minimize their cost by introducing some sustainability actions and initiatives, then it can work and it can make sense at their level. And the moment they're helped in terms of growing their enterprises, expanding their market, anticipating in the low carbon transition how the market will behave, things like that, if they're provided such enabling, then they can grow and they can be more relevant, and then they can tackle the much bigger sustainable development issues.
Wow, yes, actually, I do agree with what you said there at the last, that of being able to give these enterprises a chance by improving their either access, capacities, and all that. And I'd like to bring that to that point. I'd like to drive it in terms of capacities, because we do know that enterprises must be exposed to ways by which they can have employees who have skill sets, who can be able to support them in this sustainability aspects or this improvement of their capacities that can make them more competitive. So is there a shortage of these skills? And a very big follow-up to that, because this episode is actually, Roland, about green jobs. And we're thinking that perhaps there should be a link of whether these companies start moving towards having green jobs, or do they look for these skill sets, but if the market doesn't have it, what is there to be done? How do they address the deficit? Who should be addressing it? Something like that. I know it's all connected because based also on how you were relaying it to us earlier. So if you can please provide a good holistic, I suppose, remark on it. Because we know that skill sets could be one, or improving capacity is one of those ways for enterprises to be at par with what their other counterparts are doing in terms of sustainability.
Yes, definitely skill sets. Skill sets is critical, but skill set needs to be coupled with better processes, better technologies. For example, if you want to make and improve the operability, the efficiency, and manage the cost of a certain MSME, then introducing digital technology for them, which are not necessarily sustainability in nature and in technical practice, but these tools makes them more efficient, makes them save more energy, more time in terms of, let's say, looking for clients. If they have access to these technologies, then they can be more competitive. So it's not necessarily that what is missing from them in their enterprises is the sustainability skill, but it could be other technical skills that could make them more better able to ride these megatrends, sustainability megatrends. If everyone else is using digital technology in everything that they do, from getting customers to getting things done in its own production, then necessarily if they don't adapt to this digitalization and they don't have the right skills and access to technologies and finance for these improvements, then they'll really get left behind. So I think in smaller companies like MSMEs, the more foundational skills needed is in the improvement of their processes, in the improvement of employing digital tools that allows for more efficient selling, more efficient marketing, more efficient production, more efficient access to raw materials, and breaking away from that very rigid brick and mortar model that is keeping them small in the first place. So it can actually start from that. And the more, like I said, the more they grow, the more they increase their market and increase access to capital, the more their credit worthiness increases, the more they're able to access capital, the more they're able to access people in terms of skills, then the better they're able to deliver better value, better products, better services, and also manage the environmental and social aspects of their business. I think fundamentally companies, smaller enterprises have to address that huge barrier of growth and survivability and profitability before they can even have a conversation around making sure that their people are paid a living wage. They're not even able to make both ends meet. No? So a lot of the work needs to be done as far as enabling them to have all of these foundational elements for growth. And then we can have a good conversation around how they can now become instruments of addressing our biggest sustainable development challenges.
Yeah, on that note, we thank you very much, Mr. Bonar Laureto, for spending your time with us and sharing your very valuable
Yes.
Insights
I
on
think so.
sustainability.
Very holistic and
Yes,
integrative,
yes.
and I think that's the main takeaway from this. So it couldn't be just one focused thing, no? It has to be integrated across
Yeah.
the different aspects,
Yeah.
social, economic, and environmental.
So thank you very much, Bonar, for your time.
Thank you, Roland and Jet. It's a pleasure to be talking to your audience.
Much appreciated. Thank you. Let's have a short break for the ECOPlus Amplifying Your Voice Netizens Q&A.
The Employers Confederation of the Philippines offers training programs on industrial relations, occupational safety and health, management and employee development, human resources, and entrepreneurship development. The industrial relations programs cover labor laws, dialogue mechanisms, administrative investigations, and grievance handling. The occupational safety and health programs ensure safe and healthy workplaces in accordance with laws and good practices. The management development programs help companies manage tasks and people in the context of the fast-changing business environment. The employee development programs foster agility among workers through soft skills for survival and sustainability. The HR programs enable practitioners to build smarter organization and enhance employee-employer relationships. The entrepreneurship development programs help aspiring and existing small business entrepreneurs start or expand their businesses. ECOP trainers and consultants come from different sectors, academe, business, and government, who are experts and seasoned practitioners in their respective fields. Because of the disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, the ECOP Training and Development Department shifted its public programs online using the Zoom lectures and complemented with online exercises and case studies. To our in-house programs, ECOP works closely with our client companies in the design and execution of the training intervention to suit its specific requirements. The ECOP eCampus is a learning management system where participants can learn anywhere and anytime at their own pace. It enables ECOP to offer courses and programs either in fully online or blended approach formats. It is a repository of learning materials, pre-recorded videos, exercises, quizzes, and evaluation tools. Through the eCampus, participants can also interact with the resource persons and other participants and retrieve their certificates. Both ECOP members and non-members may access our training services. ECOP members are entitled to free slots in some of our training programs and enjoy substantial discounts on the registration fees in all courses. To learn more about our training programs, visit www.ecop.org.ph or email us at ecoptnb@gmail.com.
Jet, We are now in the ECOPlus Netizens Corner segment of the show. Let's take a question from our netizens, and this one is from ECOP's Facebook page. The question is from Joy Zelino, and her question goes this way. Kami ay isang maliit lang na kumpanya. Gusto namin maging environmentally conscious. Sana, but we have limited resources. At wala naman kami gaanong connections at kaalaman kung paano ito gagawin. So how do we start?
Wow.
Jet, bagay sa'yo yung question
Oo
na
nga,
yan
mukha,
dahil
no?
exposed ka sa mga environment projects.
Exactly. But you see, yung situation ni Joy is not something different, no? Small companies are really something that is very common. Having 99% MSMEs in terms of industries in the Philippines. And so I think it's one of the best advice there is to really go practical. You can actually start small. For instance, like yung mga ginagawa natin na in a way sasabihin nyo simple, but in fact it can really impact on productivity, like yung reduce, reuse, recycle, no? I mean, in some aspects you think it's just throwing away yung mga basura, but in fact you are trying to manage the resources and identifying which ones you can use more efficiently if you follow that approach. Now, at the same time, if you wanted to go and level up a little more, diba, you can always reach out to some supporting agencies and programs. Isang example, Roland, I think some of the ECOP member companies also in the chapters must have availed of the programs from the Department of Labor and Employment. Did you know about the NWPC program, which goes Green My Enterprise program or Green Me? Ganda nga nung acronym nila eh. And it's actually very practical and easy to follow. And of course, as I've already mentioned, if you're an ECOP member company, you can of course approach ECOP itself, because I think ECOP has this programs and I think guidelines, no? And
meron
initiatives.
kaming tinatawag na digital self-assessment compliance tool or
that's
DSAT.
very nice.
At dito
What
ay
is that?
makikita mo yung mga gaps mo in terms of compliance, especially on general labor standards at saka occupational safety and health law. At magandang dito tayo mag-uumpisa, lalo na kung ikaw ay maliit na kumpanya. Hindi naman ibig sabihin na kapag maliit ang isang kumpanya ay walang pwedeng gawing intervention when it
Or
comes
improvements.
to when
That's
it comes
right.
to environment protection.
That's right.
So, maraming salamat sa iyo, Joy, sa iyong katanungan at sana ay nasagot ni Jet ito at
and ni
nadagdagan
Roland,
ko
no?
na rin.
Yes, exactly.
Diba?
Exactly.
Oo. For our netizens, kanina binanggit namin ang ECOPlus question for the day na dapat abangan para manalo ng papremyo. Ito po ang ECOPlus question for the day. Anong Republic Act number ng Philippine Green Jobs Law? Ulitin ko lang po, anong Republic Act number ng Philippine Green Jobs Law? Napakadaling sagutin ito,
At
Jet.
iisa lang ang sagot,
Oo.
okay?
Oo.
So,
Jet, paano ba
of
sasagutan
course.
ng ECOPlus question for the day para manalo ng papremyo?
I think it's also very easy, no? So, listen in, okay? So, ito yung mechanics natin. I-comment nyo yung napakasimpleng sagot na yon sa Facebook account ng ECOP. So, you can start with saying hashtag ECOPlus Amplifying Your Voice, space, your answer, space, anong title ng episode na ito. And then, don't forget to like and share, of course, the episode on the Facebook page. So, ang mapipiling mananalo will be notified by ECOP Facebook page at bibigyan namin ng instructions on how you can claim your prize.
Thank you so much, ASEC Alex Avila, Miss Cristina Martinez, and Mr. Bonar Laureto for your time. Much appreciated. Maraming salamat din kay Joy Zelino sa iyong katanungan. Sana ay nasagot namin ni Jet ang iyong tanong.
Right.
Huwag niyo pong kalimutan sagutin ang ECOPlus question for the day. I-like at i-share ang episode na ito para manalo ng premyo. Mga ka-ECOP, I'm your host, Jose Roland Moya, with my co-host,
Georgina Pascual, saying see you every other Monday at 5:30 p.m. sa next episode ng
ECOPlus, Amplifying Your Voice. Stay safe and God bless everyone.